The QCA Compliance Committee sponsored webinar series will begin in 1 minute. Good afternoon, QCA members and applicants and friends. I'm Dee Fenton, QCA's Executive Director. You are joining the Compliance Committee-sponsored webinar series. Today, we are joined by Larry Whitney and Dr. Mary Whitney, who will be speaking on the topic of defining sustainability. Larry Whitney is a partner with Whitney & Whitney Consulting Group. Prior to his consultancy, Larry was the immediate past president of QCA, as well as being the director of global compliance for QCA accredited supplier Polyconcept North America. He's also been active in PPAI's Product Responsibility and Assurance Group. Dr. Mary Whitney is the Director of Sustainability at Chatham University, where she teaches in the Falk School of Sustainability and the Environment and has led the university's sustainability initiatives for the past 15 years. She holds a doctorate in sustainability education from Prescott College, and her research centers on organizational learning. She's also a partner with Whitney & Whitney Consulting Group. Welcome, Mary. Welcome, Larry.
Hi, Dee. Thank you very much for having us today.
Our pleasure. Briefly, QCA established the first and only validated compliance standards for the promotional products industry in our publication of the QCA Pillars of Compliance in 2009. The social accountability and environmental stewardship standards are based in the UN Global Compact standard, which fundamentally requires companies to adhere to the local law where product is manufactured and transformed, and in the countries where product will be distributed. The QCA model at its inception was a capacity building model, one whose function was to build knowledge and awareness so member companies could prepare their organizations to take on greater challenges as a result of the preparation that had been provided through training and other activities. According to the Governance and Accountability Institute, 85% of the S&P 500 index published sustainability reports in 2017. 40% of S&P companies include voluntary sustainability discussions in annual financial reports or other regulatory filings. This is a key signal that an increasing number of companies believe sustainability issues are financially material. What they report, however, varies widely. Among companies that issue sustainability reports, 95% offered quantified annual comparable environmental performance metrics. 2/3 set quantified and time-bound environmental goals. Some 86% offered social performance metrics, but only 40% set quantified social goals. So sustainability, what is it? With that, I will turn it over to Larry and Mary. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you very much. Well, to start with, we wanted to talk about really what is, get on the right slide here. What's a sustainable business? So if we had a definition up here, it's really an organization that's prioritizing environmental principles. They are applied to all business decisions. And they're really central to the business strategy. So if you think about it, environmental practices, pressures do impact our businesses. We deal with hurricanes, we deal with environmental disasters. Right now we're dealing with a pandemic. these all have impacts on our business, and how we address them moving forward really helps define what a sustainable business is. As Dee mentioned a few minutes ago, there are a lot of Fortune 500 companies that are using sustainability as part of their metrics. We've just got a few of them up here on the screen. One company, BlackRock's a major venture capital company, is let everyone know that sustainability must be a part of any business that they invest in. A lot of corporations like TD Bank, Disney, NBC Universal, if you really just pick anyone, they're all using sustainability metrics in their business. They have formal sustainability reporting. And if you look in our industry, these are just a few of the companies that have sustainability metrics posted on their websites. Now, this is just a few. There are a lot of others out there. But if you go to any of these sites, they'll talk about the things that they're doing to adopt sustainability measures in their business place. Now, as Dee mentioned, the QCA codes of conduct are based on the UN Global Compact. They're all, I think we're all familiar with these. We all have processes and codes of conduct addressing child labor, forced labor, freedom of association, non-discrimination, et cetera. And these have all been rolled into the global sustainability metrics that we'll be talking about in a few minutes. The UN Global Compact is really organized along 4 different broad areas: human rights, labor, the environment, and anti-corruption. It's a voluntary commitment with a common ethical framework. Under human rights, businesses should be supporting and respecting the protection of internationally recognized human rights and not involved in human rights abuses. For labor, the businesses should be upholding the freedom of association, rights of collective bargaining, the abolition of child labor, the abolition of forced labor, things that we're all familiar with. For the environmental platform, they should be supporting really a precautionary approach to the environmental challenges and undertake some initiatives to promote greater environmental responsibility within their businesses. And lastly, on the anti-corruption, businesses should really work toward prohibiting corruption in all its form, extortion, bribery, things like this. So if you think of these and you think of the codes of conduct that polyconcept companies adopted, these are very consistent with what they're already doing.
Okay, and this is the Sustainable Development Goals are actually a continuation of this. They are 17 goals, and there are 169 targets within the 17 goals. They're very, very specific, actually. I've given, in the notes, you'll see I've gotten some links for people to dive in. However, for each of these, no poverty, zero hunger, responsible consumption, whatever, there are national targets for them. So the SDGs are a countrywide program to develop sustainably over the next, the goal is actually 2030. So we have a little time. They are designed at the country level, and they go down into some very deep specifics about water, human rights, child labor, education. Each one may have 4 to a dozen sub-goals within it. And then there are other ways to think about this. Oops, we're having a little trouble advancing slide here, sorry. Next slide, please. Okay. No, okay, just pass over to me, I think. Okay. We can't advance our slide. So there we go. Okay, so this is another way to visualize the SDGs. This is an approach that sort of takes you from that like row of boxes where each one is completely independent and alone, to putting the social, economic, and ecological development back the way they should be, which is actually, if you look, embedded in and based on the environmental goals first. So the lower circle is the biospheric goals, and we have clean water, climate action, land, and air, because without those, none of the others can actually work. Societal goals and then economic goals are based on societal goals, because of course the economy is dependent on a smoothly functioning society to its most extent. But there was an economist at the School of Public Policy at the University of Maryland, Herman Daly. He's the author and editor of Steady State Economics. And he once very famously said, the economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment. And if the environment goes bankrupt, it's taking the economy with it. And I think that's the idea that we're trying to get businesses to recognize, is that we must be sort of addressing all of these. We can't cherry pick throughout the SDGs. We're having a little bit of a delay as we, there we go. Okay, so here are the goals themselves. They are actually a growth strategy for businesses. It's been estimated that there's about $12 trillion worth of market opportunities and savings for businesses within these goals. And it has also been estimated that it will only cost about $2.5 trillion to meet all the goals. However, the social and environmental costs of inaction become higher every year and are well set up to outpace the cost to implement. Pandemics, natural disasters, the dislocations of climate change are going to be extensive for people, particularly affecting supply chains. Some countries are actually making plans to retract from all their coastlines. And as everyone knows, a good bit of the supply chain is at the coast. So it's going to be a large cost. Therefore, embracing the SDGs and incorporating them into your business strategies and procedures now will give you a big leap on the competition and ahead, because you're actually planning for these things that are coming.
Mary, you're muted.
Sorry about that. So this goal for no poverty is really one that can be tied to the QCA codes of conduct. QCA companies are looking to pay the legal wage. They're trying to promote sustainable jobs in the countries that they operate in. The zero hunger goal is really something at the governmental level. This isn't as easy to address at the business level. For good health and well-being, this is another one which ties to the QCA codes of conduct. We require our companies to provide healthy, safe working environments, and these are areas that can be addressed by QCA companies as they're developing sustainable goals. For quality education, this again goes back to more of the, these can be addressed by any industry, making sure that education is available in the areas that they operate, and that workers have completed their compulsory education in the countries that they're operating in. And we're still having trouble advancing slides here. There we go. So for this, on gender equality, QCA companies have requirements for non-discrimination in their codes of conduct. These are areas that, as you're developing sustainability metrics, you can measure. Clean water and sanitation. Everyone should have accessible access to clean, drinkable water. All of our plants should have, that we're using, should have access to water. And these are things that can be monitored by QCA companies. For affordable clean energy, our businesses can look to source energy from clean, renewable sources. You can manage your energy use, and the factories you use can manage your energy use. And then lastly, goal 8 deals with decent work and economic environments. So people have to have the ability to get quality jobs. They're sustainable jobs. The jobs need to be manageable, not in and out, but you should be developing partnerships with companies so that the jobs are fulfilling the people in those organizations.
Larry, are we having difficulty advancing the
We're
slide?
having trouble with slides.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to take this one. I seem to be having trouble with one of the computers. I'm so sorry. So
No problem.
so we're going to actually go back a slide and try to get to the goal 9. Okay, so industry, innovation, and infrastructure is one of the goals that is definitely actionable by the industry. This is kind of interesting. Business and industry associations are the most preferred partner of companies who are engaging in corporate sustainability. So associations like QCA are actually strengthening sustainability priorities throughout. And this one, I think, we'll see a good bit of advancing on. Goal 10, reduce inequalities. Probably first and foremost, companies need to do due diligence to avoid harming human rights and to address any adverse impacts that they might be having based on their business activities. And then secondly, work to create decent jobs, make goods and services that meet needs, and develop more inclusive supply chains. Making strategic social investments and promoting public policies that support social sustainability are also really important. And businesses can partner with other businesses to pool their strengths to make a greater impact. This is basically QCA's model. Goal 11 is sustainable cities and communities. Obviously, this one is a big deal and requires a governmental connection. However, there are a role for businesses in every city to say that, yes, this is important and this is what we need to be working on. And then especially directly related to promotional products is responsible consumption and production. A company's entire supply chain can make a significant impact in promoting human rights, especially fair labor practices, environmental progress, anti-corruption policies. Companies can set goals and standards for themselves, and they can help actually set them for their vendors. This is a big one, 13, climate action. Climate change is one that is impacting all regions of the world, all sectors of society. It's threatening development everywhere. It's undermining global economy. It's costing billions of dollars. And so it is essentially a problem of everyone. And I think we all need to be taking action, especially around the areas of energy efficiency. People don't know what, they think sometimes they don't know what to do, but reducing your electric and natural gas use is, and your transportation emissions are the best things you can do. Companies can get their hands around most of that pretty easily. Goal 14 is life below water. You're sort of like, oh, what is this to us? However, managing water is actually important. Society relies on biodiversity, fish, clean water, ecosystem services for raw materials, for food for workers, supply chain products. You know, any bag that's made of cotton is relying on dirt and rain somewhere. So definitely below water and on land, goal 15 are things that business responsibility is within the supply chain for. Peace, justice, and strong institutions, definitely important. And then 17 is partnerships for the goals. And this is where we're asking people to jump in. And now we're going to show you. So you're like, oh, that's a lot of goals and a lot of things we need to do. And how can we possibly do this? And this is where it gets to the good part. You can actually advance the goals through assessment, through metrics and reporting. Setting specific goals and targets that align with sustainability, that align with the SDGs is the best way to do this. You have to begin with a self-assessment. You need to know what existing data you collect, what things you're already reporting for people, how do those things connect? And then you need to think about how those connect to the SDG goals. Deciding what metrics you want to keep track of is really going to help you show your progress. Although you do have to be wary. You can't like cherry pick which ones you want to do and not do just because you might do some of them well and some of them not as well. Some people call it SDG washing instead of greenwashing. The idea that you're only going to look shining and awesome. So you have to sort of balance getting some good early wins in your assessment against grappling with some of the bigger problems that you might have, and they're usually in the supply chain. You need to evaluate regularly, and this is just like metrics. If you don't count it, you won't know how you're progressing. You won't do it. There is a tool that you can use to assist to help you with this. It'll identify corporate opportunities, see where you need to make changes. The screenshot is actually a screenshot from this tool. And it'll tell you which of the little goals, you see the boxes, you are having a direct positive impact on, or perhaps a direct negative impact. That's the bottom row. Those are probably your most important ones that you need to be working with. There are also indirect positive and indirect negatives where you might be having some impact on the chain, but it might not be something that you can directly do, or it might be something that the impact is going to be down the road based on a new project that you are implementing. There's also the bar for more knowledge needed. This is the stuff where you just don't know. You don't have the data yet. You haven't figured it out. You're not sure what you will be doing about it. There's a place for that that'll help you formulate future strategies or identify places where you need to get more information. There was a note. I have links to this tool in the in the notes. Which if you go onto this SDG impact assessment tool, you might find that you're having trouble getting in. They have a note up on their website that since the pandemic, they're having a little trouble with the website logins. But when everything settles down here in a month or so, they should be able to address it. They are working on it. So when we're talking about metrics, there are a couple things that people might think of as a framework of sustainability, and they're not quite. So we're going to try to advance a slide. There we go.
Okay. So we wanted to bring in the FTZ green guides as part of this conversation, even though they're not part of the sustainability framework for folks in the promotional industry. That's something they are familiar with. And really, it's a guide on how to promote products without greenwashing or implying false environmental benefits. As you're looking at sustainability, while they're not part of the sustainability framework, they give you a good idea of, in the green guides, the premise is you got to prove it. So show me the facts that something is environmentally beneficial. With sustainability, it's the same thing. You need to have data. You need to have metrics. If you can prove it, wonderful. So you use the same premise as the green guides follow. So we'd like to take some questions if there are any. On the screen right here, we've got some of the future webinars. But Dee, if you have any questions from the attendees, we'd love to take them now.
Great. For the attendees, apologies about the delay in broadcasting. The full webinar will be available if you've registered. The Q&A is located in the bottom portion of your Zoom window. If you have questions, you can ask them through the Q&A window. I do have some initial questions for you, Larry and Mary. And by the way, thank you so much. The website for the UN Sustainable Development Goals has a wonderful resource called the SDG Essentials for Business, which includes a report, Better Business, Better World. Whether it's using energy efficient building materials, switching over to electric-powered forklifts, providing telehealth benefits, mitigating regulatory, operational, and reputational risk through management practices, making these shifts actually contributes to a company's bottom line. How would you say the SDGs are misunderstood?
Oh,
Do you
okay.
know what I mean by that?
Well, I think, I think I do. Yeah, a lot of people are sort of like, oh, we could never do these things. They're too idealistic. However, the SDGs are actually high-level national goals. And national goals are always large and what you might think of as idealistic in the sense of trying to eliminate poverty, infant mortality, maternal mortality, or whatever. Businesses, though, can connect their processes to the ideas that the big picture of these goals. We do the little stuff, we do, energy efficiency, we do fair labor contracts or whatever. Those are all connected to the much larger goal of, say, eliminating poverty or changing over to all renewable energy. So I think that they're misunderstood. I don't think people realize that it is a highly specific, large national level goal that we're trying to connect our work to. We are not directly responsible for meeting the actual implementation of the goal, unless you're perhaps an organization that is, like a hospital or something, but mostly for business, you're mostly connecting to the goals, not actually signing on.
Okay, thank you. What is the difference between completing a GRI, a Global Reporting Initiative assessment, and signing on to the SDGs?
Oh, okay, that's a good one. Again, as I was saying, companies don't sign the SDGs, countries do. However, you're aligning your work to the goals. Doing the GRI assessment is how you would answer where you are on actually meeting the goal. Like, are you connecting your work legitimately and logically to the SDGs? The Global Reporting Initiative assessment will help tell you that. So a GRI is essentially counting your successes or failures or just meh performance on all of these different goals, and then it lets you know how you're doing. If you see gaps, if there's a particular sustainable development goal that your business is interested in and you're not seeing your performance when you're doing that GRI, then you can take steps to adapt them.
Mm-hmm. So if you were looking at the assessment tool that you showed earlier in the webinar,
Mm-hmm.
The impact assessment tool, is there a correlation with the GRI?
Actually, there are, and it's in that Essentials for Business, and there's a whole, I think I have it in the references. I have a section, yeah, I do. The next slide, the resources slide that's up. There, if you go to the link on the GRI, there's actually, the second link is actually a guide for connecting your GRI report to the SDGs. So you can use you can use the assessment tool, or you can just, if you're already doing GRI, you can just work right through it.
What kind of documentation is typically being sought when a request is made about a company's sustainability program? You know, what if the request explicitly references environmental sustainability? Is it different than, say, a corporate sustainability program? So corporate sustainability versus environmental sustainability. Is there a difference?
Not really. There are aspects. So you could be getting questions from a company on your environmental footprint, say your carbon footprint be one good example. How much carbon are you expending to get your products to market? They might want to see that. They also might be asking about your sustainability initiatives for making sure your workers are treated properly. Some companies are working on their SDGs and they're focusing on a handful of them at a time to make it manageable. So this year you might be getting questions on your carbon footprint. Next year it might be water use. Sometime you'll be getting questions on a number of the 17 points. I guess it's going to depend on the company that's asking you.
Yeah, who your customers are.
Yep.
What are the top three things a compliance officer can do in their business today and tomorrow to move sustainability forward in the promotional products industry?
Well, first, you need company buy-in. So your executives need to be bought into this. And you need to have policies and procedures for incorporating sustainability measurements throughout your business. That can including KPIs, literally down to the employee level, because I think everyone in their jobs has something that could impact sustainability within the business. Having measurements, because as Mary mentioned earlier, it's all about metrics. So setting some measurements that you measure and report on, and then have the transparency to make them public, because you're not going to start off perfect. You're going to have areas where you have obvious areas of improvement. But if you report them and then next year report that you've made improvements and you're making progress, that's the good thing, because everybody's going to make progress at a different level. But if you're not transparent and letting folks know that you're working on it, they're not going to know that you've really adopted any sustainability measurements in the first place.
Thank you, Larry. And thank you, Mary. Are there any questions from our attendees? I don't see anything up right now. I do want to, again, thank you, Larry, and thank you, Mary, for your time today. I think it's one of the things, sustainability is one of the topics that will be a continuing issue for the promotional products, that we're interested in addressing. Separately, I would like to tell our attendees, if you didn't see today's news you may have missed, QCA has arranged to provide a series of webinars followed by live Q&A from the trade attorneys at Sandler, Travis, and Rosenberg. These webinars, webinar Q&As will air on the third Monday of the month through August. Larry Ordette will be presenting the first Q&A on the topic of customs enforcement under Trump 2020. exercising reasonable care, performing post-entry reviews, and filing prior disclosures. Make sure to follow the links in the news you may have missed to access the webinar. A separate evite will be sent out today for the Q&A. Lastly, don't forget to join us for next month's compliance webinar, a refresher on how to read laboratory reports. And there is one more question. How will the current situation impact sustainable, impact sustainable when companies just focus on staying in business? That's a really interesting one.
Well, I think that's a great question. Sustainability, the bottom line, sustainability is all about saving money. So if you're eliminating waste, you're saving money. If you're saving on energy, you're saving money. If you're not wasting water resources, you're saving money. If you're partnering with good businesses who are efficient, they're treating their workers right, they're efficient, you're saving money. So you're definitely right. The pandemic is costing and creating huge havocs within the promotional industry, and it's costing businesses a lot of money. And if they're adopting sustainable measurements moving forward, they will be in the ultimately saving money. Another thing to think about is, I mean, there's a lot of environmental pressures on the world today. I mean, we've all faced the turmoil that happens when hurricanes, typhoons interrupt our shipping. You've got pandemic right now that's shut all of our businesses down, or huge impacts on the marketplace. Those have all been predictable. I mean, there's been, over the past 10 years, there have been the, 4 or 5 pandemics. This is the most severe. You know, it's predicted that these will continue. If you're sustainable and you've got proper business mechanisms in place, you'll have the tools in place to help weather these hiccups.
Any other questions from the audience? Larry, Mary, will we have the slides available to forward to our attendees?
Yes, we'll forward out some slides with some notes on our comments.
Okay. And we will also be forwarding a copy of the webinar. It will be sent via hightail.com to attendees, as there was a technical issue at the beginning of the webinar. So with that, I will thank you both and thank our attendees for your time today, and we'll look forward to talking with you, presenting a webinar on interpreting laboratory results for next month. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.